would you believe, we're actually on the very last talk of the last 2 days. So discussions, speakers, ideas, inspiration, lots of different things have gone through, inspiration over the last 48 hours, and now the very last speaker indeed is ready to come on stage. Put your hands together for Justin Kan from Y Combinator, and once again, Ivan Borazin for a fireside chat.
Hello, everyone. We'll pull up our chairs first. Is it better now? Hello, everybody. So the last session of these last 2 days or 5 days, depending how you're looking at it. So I'd like to introduce our guest that you've seen on stage pitching right now. So Justin, welcome. I'm very happy to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been really fun.
Thank you.
Thanks for staying. Everybody here is like, you're on their last session. It's like the last mile.
Yeah.
So sleep soon.
Yeah, they get to sleep. No, they're going to get to sleep. They have to go party tonight. Yeah. So just to get started, can you do a little short background about yourself?
Sure. My name's Justin Kan. I've been working in internet companies for the past 9 years. I started a couple companies. The one that is best known is called Justin TV, and now Twitch. It's a site that lets anyone stream gaming-related video and share gaming video live, and people chat and kind of interact with our live broadcasters. Around every month, 45 million people watch video on Twitch around the world. Let's see what else. I started, and now my co-founder runs that company, and I work at Y Combinator as a partner. Y Combinator is a seed fund based in Silicon Valley and Mountain View that funds over 100 companies every year. Some of our best-known investments are Dropbox, Airbnb, and Stripe, and Twitch.
That's your best investment, Twitch. So can we start, like, how you get started your first startup? Like, what came into your mind and what you did with your absolute first startup?
Yeah, so my first startup was called Kiko, and 10 years ago, I started using Gmail in 2004, and I was like, this is really cool. It's like so much better than the crappy webmail that my college, I was in college as a senior, and the webmail that they provided us was like really bad. And then Gmail came out, and I was like, this is actually good. Like, you can make an app in the web. I wasn't a really good programmer. I was like a really crappy programmer at the time. So I was like, someone else can make an app on the web that works. And so we thought, hey, we should make a calendar version. Why doesn't a calendar version of Gmail exist? Like the, kind of accompanying app. So me and co-founder, Emmett Shear, started working on that in our dorm rooms. And we didn't know anything about web programming. And so we just kind of looked up JavaScript tutorials and like how to like drag something. We wanted to make like appointments that dragged and dropped like Google Calendar does now. So we just would like look up a tutorial online about like how to make a drag and drop JavaScript box. And like we basically pieced together a really crappy version from like looking at tutorials on the web. And then, we both got jobs after college. We were like accepted these job offers. Emmett was gonna go to Microsoft and I was gonna go become a consultant. And then we heard about this program called Y Combinator. That was an experiment from Paul Graham that, he's like a famous Lisp programmer, and Emmett had followed him, and so he heard about this thing. It was like, oh, apply for the summer and you can start we'll help fund your company. And we're like, hey, we have a company. We need funding. So we went and we applied.
You were the first batch, right?
In the first batch in 2005. So we kind of worked on our demo for over the 6 months or so. And we applied for Y Combinator, which no one knew about then. It was like new. And so I remember Jessica actually wrote us back and said, well, there's 3 categories of companies. Ones that we liked, ones that we didn't like, and ones where we liked the founders, but we thought the idea was really bad. And like that, you're in the third category. Sorry, luckily, the third category. So would you come up and like pitch us a different idea? Like, are you open to like doing something else? So we said, sure, whatever. We've only been working on this for 6 months and poured our souls into it. But whatever, we'll do whatever you say. And so we came up there, and then we sold them on the calendar idea. We were like, well, they told us, I remember Trevor Blackwell, another partner at YC, told me that there would never be JavaScript apps. It was like the computing power on your desktops was like not fast enough to run like apps in the browser. And we had a big argument, or Emmett really had this massive argument with him. I think we've been proven right over time. And so they were convinced, and then we got a call and they funded us, and that's kind of how we got started on entrepreneurship. The long story short of the first company is that when you're in college, you don't really have any appointments. You know, my senior year, I only had class 2 days a week on Monday and Wednesday, and I could remember that. So we weren't really the users of our own product, right? Like I had like on my calendar that I spent so much time building, I had like Monday class, Wednesday class.
That's it.
That's it, yeah. So when you don't use something, you're not building it for yourself, you don't like really know what's important. And we just kind of cloned Outlook, basically, like a cloned interface, but we didn't really know like why someone wanted to use a web calendar or anything. We didn't really talk to any customers. And then no one really used, we launched it, people covered it because it was kind of a new technology, but it didn't really go anywhere. And we had I remember like when we thought, hey, there should be a calendar version of Gmail, so did like 100 people in the world, and they all started working on it. So there was like many, many competitors at the time, and they basically all died when Google Calendar came out, which, happened to us. So we ended up selling the company on eBay, which is an interesting story. So we were like, okay, well, we hate running this company. We didn't really know what we were doing, so we're like, we want to get out of doing this company after about a year. So maybe we can sell it. And we tried to sell it actually to Yahoo at one point, which is another funny story. I'll tell that one first. So basically what happened was that we were 1 year out of college, or like 6 months, and Yahoo, Y Combinator had arranged for us to like talk to all these Yahoo executives, because that's what they sold their company to Yahoo, and it's like the only people in Silicon Valley that they knew at the time. So we talked to these guys from Yahoo, and then they kicked us around, and eventually we started talking to the communications team, which covered like calendar and email. And they just bought a new company that was to compete with Gmail, but they didn't have, their calendars sucked, and so they asked us to come in, and we flew there, and they were like, okay, we like you, we want to buy it. I was like, great, this is amazing. I was 1 year out of college, I thought this was like the best thing in the world. They were going to buy our company. We were thinking, how much do we want? And I was like, well, if we get $2 million, we basically get $1 million each. That is amazing, unheard of. And so they called me and they said, like, how much money do you want for your startup? And I was like, well, I want $2 million. And then he goes on the phone, he's like, how about $1 million? And I was like, yes. So then he was like, great, I'm going to write up this, letter of intent, and I'm going to email you, and I'll call you, I'll get back to you. And then I never heard from him again, basically. Which is how, I learned the hard way that deals fall through. And so, 6 months later, we were like, well, we haven't gotten anywhere, so we need to like get out of this business. We had probably 100 users actively using it. Maybe a lot of people tried it though, and so we had this large user base of mostly people who didn't put any appointments on their calendar, and we wanted to sell it. So we were like, okay, our last resort was we'll list it on eBay. We listed on eBay, and that's so weird that lots of people wrote about it because they were just like, look at this, these guys. And then I remember we got a bid. We put it at $50,000 so we could get enough money to pay back our investors, basically. And then we finally, we were like, well, we give it 10% shot that it actually works. And we got a bid, and I was like, that's amazing. And I mean, it's kind of complicated. eBay ended up canceling our auction. We had to remake it. They canceled us on this technicality, so we remade it. We were worried that we wouldn't get another bid back. And then people started bidding that morning, I remember, and in the last 20 minutes of the auction, I was refreshing. And it went from 50,000 to 85,000. I was like, oh, I'm actually going to get a little bit of money. And then it went from 85 to 100, and 113,000. I was kept refreshing. I was sitting in my friend's apartment in New York. He didn't have air conditioning, so I was just in my boxers. Had his computer hunched over, hitting F5. And every time I hit F5, I went up $10,000. I was like, this is amazing. So the auction ended at $258,000, and I was like, that's great. We made a successful startup. I created a new business model. And that's how I got started as an entrepreneur.
All right. So let's just start off on eBay right now. So like maybe we can just make an exit that way. No, that's awesome. Awesome. Very awesome. And then you made your first money there, and then you did.
And then we started a company called Justin TV. So we were like, okay, now we were flush with cash, for guys who are, I was 22, I guess. And so it was like, this is great. Now let's, what are we gonna do? And I had this idea to basically create our own reality show, like a live stream is what we called it, or live cast, of myself wearing a camera around a city, just like trying to do fun stuff. Like somehow I got in my head that I was really interesting and exciting, and like if only people could watch what I was doing, then everything would be great. So we recruited two of my friends, a hardware hacker from MIT, Kyle, and my friend Michael, who we went to college with, and we started trying to create this show, Justin TV. And so we actually did. We like built this hardware platform. I remember we spent like 6 months building this hardware platform. In the beginning, so Paul was like, "Oh, do you want to start another startup? Like, if come talk to me with ideas." And we came, I remember, with this idea, actually a different idea, which was kind of like a page layout software, and for web publishers, so they could make like a book of their like essays. And Paul writes essays, and so we went to his house, and we were like, "Hey, we have this idea, explained it." And he was like, "Well, I write online, and I would never use that. So, do you have any other ideas?" And I was like, "Well, I have this idea to strap a camera to my head." And he was like, "Okay, fund it." So I walked out of there with this check for 50 grand, and then we went and spent 6 months building this proprietary hardware platform that would send send video over the cell phone network. And it was like, this is in 2007 or 6, so there's no iPhone, there was no cell data was like really, it was not that good even in the US. And so we built this thing, and then eventually I remember we just at the last minute, the last week before, we just threw out our hardware and we used a laptop. I don't know why I didn't think of that beforehand, but so then we launched this show, and it was basically like us trying to run around, which was exhausting. We didn't have any experience in like content creation, so it was really boring. And we got all this feedback. Like people talked about it because it was like so interesting. It was kind of crazy idea. So it was on the Today Show and like MTV and a bunch of like 200 press outlets. I just spent the entire like first month doing press basically. So you got to watch like me doing press and about like how this crazy idea. And so lots of people logged on to watch it, and then inevitably, when I wasn't like, I was exhausted all the time, and so I'd be like sitting there on my computer, and they'd be like, "Get off your computer and go entertain us. You're boring." And so we tried to entertain them, but eventually, the second piece of feedback, thankfully, that they gave us was like, "Well, how do I create my own live stream?" Right? Because YouTube was out and had already been bought by Google, but there was no live video in the platform, so people wanted to know how they could create their own live video stream. And so we said, "Oh, okay, well, we'll build a platform for them." And then we built Justin TV as a live video platform, kind of like YouTube for live, and people started using it. That was kind of how we got our start.
Volim pjevati, ne znam više što da kažem, previše sam, još ne vjerujem da je ovo sve stvarnost, tako da,
Vidiš sebe jedan dan pod svjetlima pozornice, estrade.
I think that mobile's going to be big. We should build like the mobile version of our site, and I think that mobile's going to be big. We should build like the mobile version of our site, and that was one idea. And then we had another idea. My other co-founder Emmett came and said, "Hey, we have this great idea for. I really like the only video I like on Just TV is the gaming video. It was like a small community, like a couple 100,000 people out of like 30 million." That did gaming-related video, and they were streaming StarCraft. He liked watching StarCraft, and it was like kind of big in Korea. So he would watch these videos of gameplay that were like, you would download them from sites and stuff. They weren't like people didn't even put them on YouTube for some reason. So he'd like watch these videos, and sometimes people would stream gaming on our site, like very rarely. And then he was like, "This is the only thing that I actually care about. So why don't we like do gaming video?" And the rest of us were like, "What are you talking about? Gaming? People watching people playing video games? That's not a thing." So we agreed to basically work on both of these projects internally in the company, and give them some benchmarks. And one of the so the first thing, the mobile thing, became a company called project called Social Cam, which is kind of like Instagram for video. And the other thing became Twitch, which is a gaming site. And so basically, with Social Cam, we ended up spinning it off. We created a new company. It was distracting to have all these projects in one company. People would like want to work on one thing, then they want to work on the other thing. It was like, and we also didn't have to. We felt like, oh, if one doesn't work out, we'll just do the other one, right? So it was kind of like we weren't like held to the fire, right? So it's too distracting to have these things. We ended up spinning off Social Cam, and then the year later exploded, and we sold it to Autodesk for $60 million. And Twitch still is an independent company in San Francisco, and now it's like about 145 people, and my co-founder runs that. So that is the last 9 years of my life compressed into, well, actually, I started another company too, but we won't talk about that yet. That's that's some section of my life of entrepreneurial pursuits, yeah.
Crash down in 15 minutes, yeah. So I'm just gonna ask, I don't know if any of you have any questions. If you want, we can ask questions. If not, I can ask them. Anyone?
I guess the other thing I'll say is just to talk a little bit about Y Combinator. Now I work at YC full time, and at YC I'm an investing partner, so we basically try to find the best startups and invest in them, bring them to Silicon Valley, and help them grow and make something that people want, and then be successful. Often that involves fundraising afterwards and kind of management questions and the questions about how to build a company. And so that's my full-time job, and it's been pretty exciting to see the startups out here. There's a lot of like great teams and a lot of great talent. So if I haven't talked to you, you can find me around and talk to me afterward.
We have one question right here.
Sure, yeah, so the question is like, it seems like I've had a lot of success, but what are the failures? And I can tell you that failing is like the majority, like 99% of like what happened. Like you only talk about the successes because like that's the sexy thing, but like mostly we just failed all the time. Like, I mean, the first company was a total failure. Like, we sold it on eBay, that was like a Hail Mary, right? But like most of the time in the first company, we like were distracted. We worked on all these different projects internally. We like made a family social network, kind of like Genie or Facebook, I guess. We made we made something that was like YouTube for audio. If you maybe heard of a company like that, SoundCloud, but we didn't like follow through. We never launched it, and we made we made like something that was kind of like Clout, but for MySpace, because MySpace was popular at the time, and we got someone to say they'll pay us, and then we just like stopped working on the business for some reason. But we were like very distractible. It was like ADD of startups. So that was like one big problem in the early days. During Justin TV, we had like constant problems. I mean, we were sued by the UFC at some point. We like worked, before we started Social Cam and Twitch, which were very successful pivots, we worked on a white label API for live video, which nobody wanted, and we didn't build a very good product. We worked on a thing we called challenges, I remember, which was like to try to get someone to create video content. Like I want to see my friend, or I want to see someone do a skateboard trick. So I'll like put it on the site, like a request, and then that person can like broadcast it. And we built this product for like 3 months, and then like there was only ever one successfully completed challenge, and we did it. So, we built like stickers at some point into Justin TV that we sold like one sticker. Like there were a lot of things where like we only had one customer, and it wasn't like a big enterprise customer, it was like one guy who paid like $1. At one point I remember we used to have a wall on the office where we wrote how much money we wasted, and I had a column, and one of my co-founders had a column, and in all his column he had all the PR that we spent on PR firms, and at one point he put $500,000 of our venture money in like these, basically some sort of like bond or something that's supposed to be super safe, and then like 2008 happened, so it was like gone, and I think we got some of it back, and then there was this other time where so then that was his column. He was like massive, and my column had all the times we basically it's kind of complicated, but bandwidth billing works a certain way, and we would like mess up all the time and like spike our bandwidth, so we would pay this like massive overage fees, and it was like hundreds of thousands of dollars. So I mean, our company was basically like a competing train wreck, and every year I wanted to quit. Well, up until like now, but like every year I was like, oh man, I hate this. I want to just, it's so much stress. We're not being successful. I could just like get a job at like a company or something, and like, why don't I do that? Like, I hate this. I'm like uninspired. And luckily, I had like a great team of co-founders who were like, you know, when you're at your lowest low, they're like kind of slightly above you. And so they would like reinvigorate me, or I'd feel like I'd let them be letting the team down. And so I never did quit, which I'm extremely thankful for. But yeah, most of the time sucked. And it's like painful. I got to tell my friends, oh yeah, I run my own company, it's so sexy, like great, like we have this company, like I'm the boss. But really it just like sucked all the time. And like, I felt like we were failing like constantly about to run out of money. Like when we tried to raise our Series B for like Justin TV, we had raised $2 million, we thought we were like great, like on the Series A, and that was and then like this, when we tried to raise the Series B, we went out and like all these other people, we saw them raising so much money. It turns out fundraising is not the like metric of success, right? Like it's fake metric. It makes you think you're successful, but you actually haven't built any business that's sustainable. But we didn't really think about that at the time, so we just want to raise a big round, and we want to raise $10 million, and we saw like other people doing it, so we went out and then we tried to pitch all these people, and like it was like begging. Like everyone was just like no. It was like a panhandler, basically. We were like the panhandlers of Silicon Valley. Like every single VC was like, no, or actually they didn't even say no, they just like didn't call us back. We went to all the people who like invested in YouTube. They were like, we'll never invest in video again, like sucked. And so, yeah, I don't know, the whole thing was like just, it's like a series of failures, but I think the thing about the internet is that it's a growth market. So if you plant a flag and you survive, then you will be successful, because there's so many people coming online, especially in countries outside the US, you know, that, you know, if you have something that something a small sliver of people want, that sliver is gonna grow and grow and grow, and you can reach, because of the internet, you can reach the entire, like a global market. And that could be like, even businesses that are small can be big businesses. One of my partners, Kevin Hale, started this company called Wufoo. It's a form site. Like, when I saw that, I thought it was so stupid. I could make that in like 1 second. Well, like 1 hour. But like, that site, he sold it for $34 million to SurveyMonkey, because they just kind of grew and grew and grew. From 2006, they worked on it for like 5 years, and it just grew every year, you know, and that was a huge thing. I mean, he just planted a flag. One of my co-founders said, when we first moved to San Francisco, we were in this building, this apartment building. It was actually a pretty nice apartment building, but we made it shitty because we moved in it with a bunch of startups who were like all, you know, the young people who like didn't really care for the property very well. It was like a startup, you know, hotel, and we all started there, and you know, it was a bunch of companies like it's us, Reddit, Dropbox, Weebly, Discuss, Scribd, and one of my co-founders pointed out a couple years ago, he was like, man, all those companies have been successful. Like, all those companies are, you know, worth 8 figures or more, and Dropbox is a huge, you know, outlier that brings up the average, but they're all like, you know, all those companies are big companies now that employ hundreds of, you know, 100 plus people. And he was like, man, we knew a lot of really smart people from back then, right? It's so weird. And I was like, they're not that smart. Like, you don't have to be that smart to create an internet business. You just have to like survive. That's the hard part. But, you know, if you can, you're probably gonna do something good.
Awesome. Really awesome. I'm just taking a little bit. Why did you go into Y Combinator? I mean, sorry. Why did you become a partner in Y Combinator? So you have your company, you still run them.
Yeah, so I have the company, but my co-founder, Emmett, really, I mean, he drove the whole gaming thing from like, you know, start to like now where it is today. And so he runs it as the CEO. It was like his vision, and I was like, oh, when we're kind of like making Justin TV into Twitch, like the company basically slowly, people moved from Justin TV to Twitch until like it was like everyone was working on Twitch, and we renamed the company. And so it was like, made sense for him to be the CEO of that. I started another company called Exec, which is kind of like a Uber for house cleaners. But, you know, ultimately, after we sold that in January of this year, but, you know, with YC, it was like, one of the things is like I love working on new ideas and helping people, and I talked to a lot of people. I was making angel investments myself, and so it was just a way that I could like do that as a professionally basically. So I get to talk to, we have to work with tons of different startups every year, twice a year through, we have 2 batches, one in the summer that's going on right now, and then one in the winter from January to March. And it's just a really fun job. It's like the most fun thing I could imagine doing.
Is that your full-time thing then? I mean,
yeah, I mean, full-time,
day.
mostly. I still make angel investments, and I'm still on the board of my company. But yeah, that's my full-time job now.
You walk into the office every day and like talk to startups, stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. Every day I'm talking to startups basically, and it's just like a fun job. And also, doing the startup is extremely hard, right? Like I wanted to take a little break. So,
are you going back to startups?
I have no plans to go back to startups
at
this
all.
moment. At this moment, I don't know. Who knows? Every day it's something different. So ask me tomorrow.
All right, I'll ask you tomorrow. Do you have any more questions out here?
Guy. I'll repeat your question. Just. Yeah, so the question is like, your ideas sound insane. How did you convince people to do them? And I don't know. I think that like the reason that we were successful is because we had a really talented team. Everyone talks about like, oh, you have to have a talented team, and it's all about the team, right? I think we're the example of like stupid, terrible ideas, but somehow became successful because of the team, like through like magic, basically, or like actually through having really talented people work hard on a lot of failures, and then eventually finding something good. But I think that like how my talent, if I have any talent, I'm like a shitty programmer. I'm like an okay web developer now because I've been doing it so long. I'm a pretty crappy manager because I don't like checking in with people, and I don't really like setting goals for people. I'm an okay marketer now. I'm a decent marketer. But like the thing I'm really good at is that I'm good at exciting people about crazy stuff sometimes, like just things that that are weird or like crazy, or business ideas that I get excited about. I like love talking about them. I love thinking about like new ideas. And I love saying, hey, like we can build this. Like let's just get started. Like what's the downside? Like the hardest part to any project is the first step. Because people think about all that, you can psych yourself out easily. You can think about the negatives. Maybe you have a job that's like really nice, that you don't want to leave. Like maybe other people told you your startup idea is a bad idea or whatever. But the hardest part is always the first step. And I'm really good at getting people like just shoving them out the door and being like, let's do this. I mean, I don't know. It applies. That's been my only talent, I guess. That's the only thing I think I'm actually really good at. So you just have to be excited, right? If you're excited, people get excited, and that's I think that's really important. Like you have to have someone to do that. Then my other co-founders are much more talented at programmers and managers and at pretty much everything. So.
All right. Thank you, Justin Kahn. Our time is up. Okay. So let's go. Thank you.